Welcome to Travelpop on Cavan Online Radio with your host Daniel Downey. This is Travelpop, where we talk about one country for 10 minutes and all the things that I can squeeze into those 10 minutes. And this week's Travelpop, we're talking about Turkey. Turkey, with 73 million people, they use the Turkish lira. Their climate is incredibly varied as their cultures and their landscapes. The climate on the Mediterranean coast is, as you guessed it, a Mediterranean-type climate, which doesn't really drop below 5 degrees Celsius, but can go up as high as 40 degrees Celsius in some places. Or if you go around the corner towards the Middle East, it can go even higher, 40 to 45 degrees. The second area is the oceanic climate. That's on the Black Sea, and that's pretty much kind of cool. It never really goes above 25-30 degrees and never really drops below 0 degrees. It's a little bit cooler, and it's mostly fog-clad during the summertime. Then you have the central area, and it's continental and dry, and the central areas are all highlands and desert regions and stuff like that. And then the southeast is pure desert. That's the borders with Syria, and not a great place to visit at the moment. Anyway, let's just go straight into Turkey then. There's 5 main regions of Turkey. The first one is called the Marmara region. It's named after the little sea that lies between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. And here you'll find a few different things. First up is Troy. And you can go and visit the old Trojan city, and it's you can see the ruins where the siege of Troy took place and all that stuff that happened in the story. If you want to know more, just Google Troy. And then you can go also and visit Gallipoli, which is the famous World War I site where the British and Turkish soldiers and the Anzac troops fought each other, and it's a really, really, really harrowing place. But the Turkish authorities have done it up really well, and it's an incredible place to visit. The most impressive place to go to and the most bustling place to go to in the entire country, but in this region, is Istanbul. Istanbul used to be called Constantinople, and it's not the capital of the country, but it is the cultural heart of the country. It stands on the crossroads between Europe and Asia, and there's 5 main things I'm going to point out that you can go and see here. The first one is you can go on a Bosporus cruise. The Bosporus is the waterway between Asia and Europe, and Istanbul stands directly on that. So you can go to the Bosporus cruise, you can take a little ship up and down, and you're literally standing on the footsteps of history there between the 2 continents that have dominated European and Asian history for thousands and thousands of years. While you're on the docks as well, you can stop and have fresh fish that you come in off the docks, and it's incredible, it's amazing. You just go, there's a little fisherman in a boat, you buy fish, and he puts it in a bap, a roll, and he puts lemon on it, and it's just incredible. It's straight out of the sea as well. He cooks it on the boat. The third thing to go and see is called the Hagia Sophia. It's one of the most fortress type mosques you'll see in the world, and it's an incredible piece of architecture. I'm not usually into my architecture and buildings and stuff like that, but some of these buildings cannot fail to impress and humble you as well, including the Blue Mosque, which is number 4 on our list there. That's an incredible place, and one worth to see. It will leave you astounded. The last thing I'm going to leave you on was my favourite. It's called the Cistern Basilica. It was lost for almost 1,000 years, but it was basically the old water storage area that the Romans had developed during the Roman Empire when Constantinople was the capital of that area. And it was only found when someone was digging a little well in his back garden and suddenly chipped into a gigantic cavern underneath that had water storage. It's one of the most beautiful rooms I've ever been in my life. And when I say room, it's about the size of a cathedral, but underground, lit with pillars and water everywhere. So you can go down, there's a little cafe inside, and it's one of the most beautiful rooms you'll ever enter in your life. That's the Marmara area. The second area you can go to is the touristy area. That's along the coast of the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. The Aegean Sea is basically the sea that joins Turkey and Greece together. And there's 3 main things to see here. You can go and see the Athena temples at Assos. You can have a look at the salt pools at Pamukkale. They're incredible. They're basically fountains of salt and water that just spill everywhere. And it feels like you're standing inside candy floss or inside cotton. Everything is white and blue water. The third thing you can go and see there as well is the Roman ruins of Ephesus, and you can actually go into some of the old Roman swimming pools and you can go swimming over the mosaic floors, and it's pretty incredible. The touristy areas as well, you can go to the Mediterranean area. It's a little less touristy, That's why it's a little bit more refreshing than the Aegean area. But you can go see castles. It's very mountainous. It's very pine forested as well, even though it's pretty hot. And it is very hot. There is a danger of heat stroke there, so be careful and do wear your sunscreen. And also there's a warning of scorpions. The whole area is pretty infested with scorpions. And if you're hiking, camping, things like that, do try and look into your boots and shoes before you put them on in the mornings. Also, if you go further east along this Mediterranean area, there is a warning that you're coming close to the Syrian border, so do be careful about that. The next area we're going to talk about is the Black Sea area. That runs from basically where Europe is, where Romania is, all the way along to such weird and wonderful countries as Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, countries like that. And it's an unusual place. It's probably one of the least visited places in Turkey, including the desert areas bordering Syria. It's less populated, less visited, but it's forests, mountains, and it's incredible. If you're going to go there, definitely go to two places. Trabzon is a beautiful city. It's built into the coast, falls down into the sea. In the summertime it's full of fog, but they have a beautiful monastery there called Sumala Monastery, and the monastery is built into the cliffs. So you have to climb up these steps and you're going into the side of a mountain to visit it. And Sumala Monastery is inspiring. It's gorgeous and beautiful. The other place to go is Sinop. Sinop is a really ancient city along the coast, and you can do a lot there. It's just a quaint, beautiful little place to visit, and you feel like you're in a completely other world or completely other time when you're there. And then finally, when you're in the Black Sea region, do the forest hiking up into the mountains. The whole area is very sparsely populated and it's really nice, but because of that, people are very, very friendly. And it's an area that isn't very poor. People are farmers, but they have a lot of good farms. It's not deserty or anything, so there's a lot of people out to help you, and they want to encourage tourism. Next section we're talking about is Central Region. The Central Region stretches basically from the area we're talking about before, around Istanbul, all the way across the inner part of Turkey. And it's all uplands, it's all fairly deserted, and there are very few trees. But there are four main things to see here. The first one is Cappadocia. Cappadocia is the very, very, very centre. It's an ancient place, it's an incredible place to visit, and I've been there twice. It's one of the most incredible places that you can ever go and see. At the heart of Cappadocia is a town called Göreme, and what they have is called the fairy castles, and they're little kind of you'd have to Google it to see. It's incredible. They're little kind of castles that you live inside. It's solid rock that are about 10 to in some cases 40 or 50 feet high, and they're hollow. They hollow them out and make hotels, even police stations out of them, and you can go and stay inside one in the fairy castles, the fairy chimneys that they're called there. Next place that would be worth visiting is the Tuzgulu Salt Lake. It's an entire lake. When you look at it on Google Maps, you can see it looks like a little sea in the centre. It's about the size of Loch Ness in Northern Ireland, but in actual fact it's just salt. It's beautiful at first, but if you stay too long or if it gets windy, you're getting salt all over you, in your mouth, your eyes, and it's pretty intense experience to go there and see that. And it's very deserted. It's a kind of a horrid place to be stranded waiting for a bus for 4 hours, as I was. The last two places to see in central regions, the first one is Derinkuyu Caves. It's an underground cave city that was inhabited from about 6000 BC to about 1000 BC and then deserted for thousands of years. But it was still used by the locals to store food and stuff, because when you go below 10 feet or 10 meters, I can't remember which, it becomes 10 degrees Celsius even during the winter when it's very cold and the summer when it's very warm. And a lot of the people still kind of live there until recently when it was turned into a tourist complex. The next place to go see is the Ilara Valley. It's a long valley walk and you can arrange a bus tour to take you out there. It's pretty incredible. The last region we're going to talk about is the Southeast region, and that is very, very varied and no tourists visit at all. In the north-southeast region you have Mount Ararat, which is where apparently Noah's Ark landed. You have Ani Ghost City. I'm running out of time, I only have a minute left. You have Ani, which is an entire ghost city of monasteries and stuff. It's incredible. Be careful, you do get altitude sickness in some of these areas. In the southeast region, there are some warnings, but before we go to those, Urfa is an incredible city to go to, and go to Göbekli Tepe when you're there. It's a 9000 BC a site, and it's probably one of the first temples ever created by humanity that we have. Also go and visit the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. That's where civilization basically started, and they both rise in the Turkish region. If you're into your history, if you're into your culture, you're into your food, and do try the kebabs that are cooked inside clay. They basically just take the kebab stuff, put it in clay and throw it in a fire. They're the most amazing kebabs you'll ever have in your life. Warnings about this region: the heat goes over 40 degrees Celsius in the summertime, can be pretty harsh. There are issues with Turkish and Kurdish problems, tensions, and the Syrian war is right on your doorstep. I've hit my 10 minutes. That's been Turkey. Thanks very much for listening. Join us next week for more travel adventures on Travelpop. Bye bye.